So if you're like me, you're a dungeon master and you go through and you're always trying to find the next big challenge for your players. What I do a lot of the time is I will comb through my 3.5 manuals to try to find a variant of an existing monster in 5e or some brand new monster that they haven't seen or hasn't been introduced in 5th edition yet. But why should I have to do that when someone like Dragonix has a best platinum seller on the DM's Guild and it's appropriately titled The Monster Manual Expanded, parentheses 5e. If you want to see what that's about and get a preview of some of the monsters contained within inside, stay tuned. What's up, guys? We're over here on the DM's Guild. It's Ted from Nerd Immersion, and you can see here is the Monster Manual Expanded for 5th edition. Couple things. One, I was provided a copy of this for review. That will not sway my opinion, but if the fact that there are 41 ratings, which is one of the highly rated things we've reviewed lately on the DM's Guild, for 5 stars, it is a best platinum seller, and there is a reason why. And let's not mince words here. It's a best platinum seller with a price tag of $19.99. So therefore, it is one of the higher price modules that's not like an official book out there that's gonna cost, that's sold so many copies. You can see right here, 339 pages is the whole. It is a massive tome, and honestly, the biggest travesty of this is that you can't get it in hardcover, because I would love to have this printed so that I could have a copy to put on my shelf. And look at that. There's a review from yours truly. Monster Manual Expanded does a fantastic job of lovingly recreating monsters that were sadly missing from 5e. Whether you're looking to populate your homebrew world or just looking to make that 10th playthrough of Lost Mines of Phandelver a little more interesting, Monster Manual Expanded should be one of your go-to resources. That's what I had to say. You can see there are other people on here that also have things to say. Here's the table of contents. Here's a handful of the monsters. But let's dive in. So one, as I say with all of these, there's no way I could read through the entirety of this document because we'd be here for hours. It's 340 pages. I'd be bored, and probably you'd be bored as well. So what am I going to do? I have a list in front of me. I have, I think, 10 monsters. So we're going to see. I might cut it short if I think 10 is too long. But I also don't want to discourage you from going out to pick up a copy for yourself. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. And as of me recording this, we are only weeks away from Monster Manual Expanded 2 dropping on the DM's Guild. So now's the perfect time to get number 1, and then number 2 is right around the corner. So plenty of awesome stuff for you to throw at your players. So I kind of jumped all around throughout the manual, and what we're going to start with, I think, is going to be the Naumkeag. So an Naumkeag is one of my favorite enemies. It's one of the first ones listed in the Monster Manual. I feel it gets looked over a lot. It's a really cool big ant, kind of almost like an ant lion type creature with the big pincer mouth, and they spit acid. So that's really cool. But unfortunately, I think Naumkeags are CR like 1 or 2, so they are very quickly outclassed by the party. They usually maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 encounters in. They hit level 2 or 3, depending on how things go in your game. So we have things here like the Naumkeag Broodmother. I also love the art, I want to say, because a lot of this art is art that's been reused from previous 3.5 edition sources. So I have a nostalgia for a lot of the art here. But you can see an Naumkeag Brood Queen is a CR8, so we are significantly stronger here. 17 natural AC, 14 while prone, 114 hit points, 40 speed, burrow 20, got tremor sense and dark vision, no sneaking up on these guys. Lay egg. As an action, the Brood Queen can lay an egg that contains an Naumkeag broodling. The egg appears in the nearest space within 5 feet of the Brood Queen. The egg has an AC of 5 and 5 hit points. At the end of its next turn, the Naumkeag broodling can use a bonus action to break out of its egg and immediately move and attack. So we have the broodling here as well. Burst forth, the Naumkeag breaks through solid ground as a bonus action, showering the area with debris. Each creature within 15 feet of the Brood Queen that is surprised must make a DC 17 strength check, which is interesting. Taking 20 or 46 plus 6 bludgeoning damage, and it is knocked prone or half as much on a success. So it does have to be a surprise, but that's a really cool way to enter into combat, just and deal damage. Then you've got multi-attack, 2 melee attacks, one with its bite and claws. The bite is 46 plus 6 plus 2d6 acid damage. If it's huge or smaller, she is also huge. They're grappled with a DC 16 escape check. Until this grapple ends, the Brood Queen can only bite the grappled creature and has advantage to do so. The claws are 2d8 plus 6 damage. It can command Naumkeag, so the Brood Queen targets 1d4 Naumkeags within 30 feet that can see and hear the Queen. They use their reaction to make a melee attack, which is a great way. This could be a really good... I'm already building out a really good encounter. For some reason, the party has to delve into an Naumkeag lair, and depending on how you set this up, you could... They're not the ideal thing to try to replicate a xenomorph in Dungeons & Dragons. There are better monsters that do that, but you could definitely do that, a kind of xenomorphic style scenario, where you've got this queen, you've got the other Naumkeags are sort of your drones, you've got your eggs and your broodlings, they spit acid, you could give them resistance to acid or give them some sort of retaliatory when they get hit, they spray acid. And now you've kind of got a cool alien-themed thing, but like if you have the queen, and it's not just her as the final boss, but it's the queen and a couple regular Naumkeags, and she can command them to attack as one of her actions, and they get to make a reaction attack. Very cool. And she's got a 60-foot long line acid spray with a DC 14 dex save for 8d6 acid damage. That's basically a fireball, or basically a lightning bolt, I guess you could say, slightly shorter acid-based lightning bolt. And the Broodlings, that recharges on a 5/6. The Broodlings are only challenge rating a quarter, but their bite does a d6 plus 1d4 acid damage, and they do have a very minor acid spit of 2d4 damage with a DC 11 dex save, but it's still half on a success. So with her, with a bunch of eggs around her and a couple of other Naumkeags, you could get a very cool encounter, and I'm a big fan of that. Next up on our list here, we've got an Ettercap, another really cool monster. If you're unfamiliar, an Ettercap is sort of a humanoid spider. There's no actual picture here, but they are only like challenge rating 2, I think. So we have 2 significantly improved Ettercaps. We've got the Ettercap Forest Stalker and the Ettercap Spider Master, which is the one we're going to be talking about here, which is large size, challenge rating 8. I didn't all pick challenge rating 8 monsters. That's just how it worked out. AC 13, 117 hit points, and you can see it has spellcasting, which is what makes it sort of unique from the regular-based Ettercaps. It's got Druid-based spellcasting, Charm Person, Entangle, Healing Word, Jump, so it can heal, which is pretty unique. Beast Sense, Moonbeam, Spike Growth, Conjure Animals, Spiders only, obviously, Dispel Magic, Blight, Confusion, and Insect Plague. It can climb on all surfaces. It can summon spiders, not as part of Conjure Animals, but just as a bonus action, 3d4 giant wolf spiders or 1d6 giant spiders. They appear in an unoccupied space within 30 feet. They have web sense. They are not slowed by difficult terrain in the woodland environment, and they can walk across any kind of webs. And here we have their multi-attack, one with its bite, one with its claws, or web if it's available. It also uses web if it is available, so it can do all 3. Bite is plus 5 to hit, a d8, plus 2 piercing, plus 2d8 poison. DC 13 con save would be poisoned for a minute. Claws are 2d4 plus 2. Web is a range of 30-60 on a large or smaller creature. If they're hit, they're restrained by the webbing. As an action, the restrained creature can make a DC 13 strength check to break free, or you can attack the web. And then we have direct spider ally, very similar to the Naumkeag, which was not planned. When a creature the Ettercap can see starts its turn within 30 feet of the Ettercap can target an allied spider it can see within 30 feet. The spider can use its reaction to move up to its speed and make 1 melee weapon attack against the thing. The only difference is that's a reaction, whereas for the Naumkeag, that was like a once a shorter long rest, that this can happen every turn, and it can happen as a reaction, so the Ettercap can choose when to do so. Again, not really planned, but you could also build a very similar xenomorphic sort of alien queen hybrid scenario with the Spider Master as the queen, maybe a couple Forest Stalkers and regular Ettercaps, and a bunch of spiders, and build a really spooky underground thing where the players have to take out the queen, which in this case would be the Ettercap. I don't know, it'd be a pretty sweet... The cogs are turning for campaign-based ideas for my own game. Next, we have a Golgotha Hydra. So Hydras, I think, are severely... they're really powerful in a way, but, you know, everybody knows what happens with Hydras, right? You cut the heads off, you burn them. And I don't think they're that heavily represented, but you can see... I mean, there's one, I think, in the Monster Manual, but you can see here we have 5. We have some that can kind of, you can make sense of, right? The Cryo Hydra is an ice-based Hydra with an ice breath. The Pyro Hydra is a fire-based one. The Fen Hydra is kind of interesting because it doesn't have legs and it sort of slithers. It's kind of like almost like a snaky Hydra. But we're going to go with the Golgotha Hydra, which is an Otyugh mixed with a Hydra. Well, you can see it's kind of got the Otyugh tentacles, and it kind of falls in line with that sort of idea of the Owlbear. Like some crazed wizard combined these two very powerful creatures. Rather than an owl and a bear, they combine an Otyugh and a Hydra, which is arguably way worse. This is a challenge rating 14 creature, 16 AC, 225 hit points, immune to acid damage. It can hold its breath for an hour, has 5 heads. While it has more than one head, it has advantage on saving throws against being blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, or knocked unconscious. Whenever it takes 40 or more damage in a single turn, one of its heads dies. If all of its heads die, it dies. At the end of its turn, it grows 2 heads for each of its heads that died since the last turn, unless it has taken fire damage since the start of its turn. It regains 15 hit points for each head regrown. That's pretty much standard Hydra stuff. Reactive heads. For each head the Hydra has beyond 1, it gains an extra reaction that can be used only for opportunity attacks. The Stench here is an Otyugh style ability. Any creature that starts its turn within 10 feet of it must make a DC 19. Pretty beefy save. Constitution saving throw will be poisoned until the start of its next turn. On a successful save, it is immune to the Stench for 24 hours. While the Hydra sleeps, at least one of its heads is awake, so it's never caught off guard. It can make as many bite attacks as it has heads and 2 tentacle attacks. So starting off base, that's 7 attacks. It can replace both tentacle attacks with a tentacle slam, and we'll get to that. Again, tentacles and tentacle slams are Otyugh abilities. 10-foot reach on the bite, 1d10 plus 6 piercing damage, must succeed on a DC 19 Constitution saving throw against disease or become poisoned until the disease is cured. I like that it's specified that it's against disease for people that have advantage on disease or immunity, but then they are poisoned per the condition. Every 24 hours that elapse, the target must repeat the saving throw, reducing its maximum hit points by a d10 on a failure. The disease is cured on a success. The target dies if the disease reduces its maximum hit points to 0. The reduction to target's hit points lasts until the disease is cured. Tentacles have a reach of 15 feet, 2d8 plus 6 bludgeoning, plus 2d8 piercing. The target is larger or smaller. It is grappled and restrained. It has 2 tentacles, and it can only grapple 1 target with each tentacle. Again, these are what the standard Otyugh has. Tentacle slam. It slams a creature grappled by it into each other, or into a solid surface. Each creature must succeed on a DC 19 strength saving throw or take 46 plus 6 bludgeoning damage and be stunned until the start of the Golgotha Hydra's next turn. On a successful save, the target takes half the bludgeoning damage and isn't stunned. That is huge, right? You slam it, especially if you have 2 people grappled and you tentacle slam them into each other. They are now stunned. You now have advantage on attacks, and you can bite them a whole bunch of times. If they're up close to you, they're poisoned as well. So there's a lot of good things this thing can do. And this is a great swamp-based encounter, or like a really nasty undercity-based encounter. Or something you could throw in like a wizard's tower or some sort of kooky wizard scenario. All right, next up, we're going to go to the Greater Mimic. Again, I think Mimics are great, but they are, again, severely outclassed early on. And I'm noticing that that's sort of a thing that I did. I picked a lot of enemies that are really cool, but once the party reaches a certain level, they start to be less interesting. So we have the Greater Mimic here. Challenge rating 7, immunity to acid and the prone condition, 13 AC, 133 hit points. Has a standard Mimic shape change ability, polymorph into an object. It is adhesive. The Mimic adheres to anything it touches, only in object form. A creature adhered to the Mimic is grappled with a DC 15 escape check. Ability checks made to escape the grapple have disadvantage. It has advantage on attack rolls against any creature it has surprised. It's undiscernible from a regular object while it's motionless, and the Mimic has advantage on attack rolls against any creature it has grappled. It makes 3 attacks, 2 with its pseudopods and 1 with its bite or acid spit. So the pseudopods, 2d8 plus 5 bludgeoning. If it's in object form, the target is subjected to the adhesive trait. Bite is 2d8 plus 5 bludgeoning plus 2d8 plus 5 bludgeoning plus 2d8 acid. And it has a 60-foot single target acid spit for 4d8 acid damage. So it's pretty sweet in that, I mean, it's pretty intelligent too, right? A 6 for a mimic. That's pretty good. So it's just also more dangerous to have that much increased damage, but then also give it a ranged attack, which mimics typically do not have. It does have a 20-foot movement speed, so it can move about as much as a normal mimic, but this one can also spit acid at a distance. We're not really going to go over, but there's also the enormous mimic, which in this case is a tower, which is a challenge rating 13, and that's pretty sweet. All right, I have a Nothic next, a Mindblight Norfolk here, which is pretty cool. This was an enchanter wizard before it was cursed to become a Nothic. Those foolish enough to look at it risk becoming temporarily mind controlled by it. Challenge rating 5, 75 hit points, 16 AC. Insanity Gaze. When a creature starts its turn within 30 feet and is able to see the Nothic's eye, it can magically force it to make a DC 13 intelligence save, which is not usually very good, unless the Nothic is incapacitated. On a failed save, the creature must use its action to move up to its speed and make a melee weapon attack against a creature of the Nothic's choice that the Nothic can see. So it gets to choose who they attack. It has advantage on perception. It makes a rotting gaze and 2 claw attacks. Claws are 1d6 plus 3 slashing plus 2d6 psychic, which is pretty cool. The rotting gaze is one creature within 30 feet of it must make a DC 13 con save or take 4d6 necrotic damage. So it can do that every turn, but then it has 2 other abilities, right? The Mind Rot, which is a recharge of 5 or 6. Up to 3 creatures of its choice within 60 feet must succeed on a DC 14 intelligence saving throw or take 3d8 plus 2 psychic damage and have disadvantage to attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, and can't use reactions until the end of the Nothic's next turn. If the target is a spellcaster that has unused spell slots, it also expends 1d4 spell slots chosen at random, which is just crazy to just blow spell slots like that. And then it has the Nothic Weird Insight ability here. It targets one creature it can see within 30 feet of it. They must make a Charisma Deception check against the Nothic's Insight check. If the Nothic wins, it magically learns one fact or secret about the target. The target automatically wins if it is immune to being charmed. Next up I have on my list, we're still pretty early, we're going to try to keep this around 20 minutes if we can. We have the Dire Owlbear. As you can see here, we do have 4 additional Owlbear options, which is pretty sweet. We have the Dire, Great Horned, Iron Feather, and Winter Claw. So Winter Claw is sort of like a winter wolf kind of owlbear, and that has an ice breath. The Iron Feather has literal iron feathers. So I figure we're going to go with the good old Dire Owlbear. Challenge rating 8. It's just beefier version of a regular owlbear. 150 hit points, 14 AC. It can make 3 attacks, 2 claws, and 1 beak, but I like this ability. If both claw attacks hit a huge or smaller creature, the target takes an extra 2d8 slashing damage and must make a DC 18 strength save or be knocked prone. And it is a huge monstrosity. 2d10 plus 7 piercing damage on the beak and 2d8 plus 7 piercing damage on the claw. And there's a really cool... This actually looks more like an eagle bear than an owl bear in my mind, but I think it looks pretty sweet. All right, now we're going to get into one that no one's ever really going to do, but I like. And this is this versions of the Tarasque. So it's a Tarasque, right? No one's ever really going to fight one. Typically, it's challenge rating 30, but this is a variant, and it states right here, a more challenging variant the DM can choose to use. So when I look at it, the things, I don't see too much different, right? You've got your legendary resistances 3 times a day, and I'm not sure if a regular Tarasque has that. I think this has more hit points, 676 hit points, 25 AC. Immunity to fire, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical, and immune to charm, frightened, paralyzed, and poison. Blind sight out to 120 feet. Magic resistance, the reflective carapace. Some of the things I know that it has that's different is the disintegration breath and the earthquake stomp. So it makes 5 attacks a turn. It's got its bite, its claws, its horns, and its tail. 1 bite, 2 claws, 1 horn, 1 tail. And you can see the damage is bananas, as it should be. 40-12 plus 10 piercing, plus 19 to hit, 10-foot reach on the bite, 15-foot reach on the claws, 48 plus 10. The horns, 10-foot reach, 48 plus 10. If the attack roll succeeds by 5, they must make a con save or be stunned. I don't know if that's there normally. Tail attack, 48 plus 10, DC 20 strength save or be knocked prone. If the creature fails by 5 or more, it's also pushed up to 60 feet from the Tarasque. If a push target strikes a solid surface, it takes a d6 bludgeoning damage for every 10 feet it was pushed. If it's pushed at another creature, the creature must succeed a DC 20 dex save or the same damage, take the same damage and be knocked prone. We have Disintegration Breast, with a 240-foot line that's 10 feet wide. Dex save for 10d6 plus 40 force damage on a fail, or half on a success. If this damage reduces the target to 0 hit points, it is disintegrated. A disintegrated creature and everything it is wearing and carrying except magic items are reduced to a pile of fine-grade dust. The creature can be restored to life only by means of a true resurrection or wish spell. So that makes it a little crazy. That's a recharge of 6. The Earthquake Stomp, recharge of 6. Each creature on the ground within 60 feet of the Tarasque must succeed on a DC 20 strength save. If the target is within 30 feet, it has disadvantage. On a failed save, it takes 8d10 plus 10 bludgeoning, and is pushed up to 20 feet and knocked prone, or half as much damage, and isn't pushed and knocked prone on a successful one. Frightful Presence, 120 feet of it, DC 17, Wisdom saving throw, be frightened for a minute. Creature can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns with disadvantage if the Tarasque is within line of sight, ending the effect on a success. If you succeed, you're immune for 24 hours. And Swallow. If it makes a bite attack against one larger, smaller creature is grappling, if the attack hits, the target takes the bite's damage, the target is swallowed, and the grapple ends. While inside, is immune to total cover from outside effects and takes 16d6 acid damage at the start of each of the Tarasque's turn. If the Tarasque takes 60 damage on a single turn from a creature inside it, it must succeed on a DC 20 con save at the end of that turn, or regurgitate all swallowed creatures which fall prone in a space within 10 feet of the Tarasque. If it dies, the swallowed creature is no longer restrained by it and can escape from the corpse by using 30 feet of movement. And 3 legendary actions: 1 attack of a claw or tail, move up to half of its speed, or chomp. It makes 1 bite attack or uses its swallow. Again, it's a Tarasque. You're probably not going to encounter it too much, but I wanted to include that. We've got the Dread Unicorn, which is badass here. The Black Unicorn. I know this isn't, I think, in the Monsters of Faerun from 3.5, but rather than me have to create one, here's one for me. Challenge rating 5. It's an evil unicorn. Resistance to cold, fire, lightning, immunity to poison, charm, paralyze, and poison conditions. If it moves at least 20 feet in a straight line, attacks with its horn attack on the same turn, it does an extra 2d8 piercing damage, and the creature must make a strength save, DC 15, or be knocked prone. It has innate spellcasting with a DC 14. At will, detect evil and good, druidcraft, and pass without trace. Once per day, dispel evil and good, entangle, and ray of enfeeblement. Advantage on magical saving throws against magic effects and other magics and spells, I should say. Weapon attacks are magical. It makes 2 attacks, one with its hooves and one with its horn. The hooves are 2d6 plus 4 bludgeoning, and the horns are d8 plus 4. Horn of Death, twice per day. Plus 7 to hit, 1d8 plus 4 piercing damage, and the target must make a DC 14 con save. On a failed save, it takes 7d6 necrotic damage. The target can't reduce the target's... The damage can't reduce the target's hit points below 1. If the target fails the saving throw, its hit point maximum is reduced for 1 hour by an amount equal to the necrotic damage it took. Any effect that removes disease also restores the creature's hit points. Once per day teleport, which is a typical unicorn thing. And then 3 legendary actions. Hoof attack for 1. 2 actions is Shadow Shield. Surrounds itself with a shadow... itself or another creature within 60 feet with a Shadow Shield until the end of the unicorn's next turn. Any creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against the target. An attacker is immune to the effect if it doesn't rely on sight, as with blind sight or can see through illusions. Or Disrupt Life for 3 legendary actions. Each creature within 10 feet of the unicorn must make a DC 14 con save, or take 5d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half on a success. I mean, first of all, it's also badass, and an evil unicorn is always fun to throw at people, because no one expects the evil unicorn. And then this section is probably my favorite, and I would say one of the most useful, is just the expanded miscellaneous creatures, adding better and higher challenge rating versions of a lot of beasts. So this would be huge for any druid, but I wanted to try, I got 2 more here that I want to go over. The Green Vise, which is basically an animated Venus flytrap, which is awesome. Challenge rating 7. it remains motionless. It's undistinguishable from an ordinary plant. It makes 3 attacks, 1 with its bite and 2 with its tendrils. Its bite is 3d8 plus 6 piercing. If it's a medium or smaller creature, it must make a DC 17 dex save or be swallowed by the creature. A swallowed creature is blinded and restrained, has total cover from outside effects, and takes 46 acid damage at the start of the green vice's turn. If the green vice takes 20 damage on a single turn from a creature inside it, it must succeed on a DC 15 con save or regurgitate all swallowed creatures, with which fall prone in a space within 10 feet. If it dies, they can escape easily. The tendrils have a reach of 20 feet, so it's a pretty long reach. A D8 plus 6 bludgeoning, plus a D8 piercing. If it's medium or smaller, it is grappled and restrained, and is pulled 15 feet towards the green vice. So it's an attack, grapple, restrain, and pull all in one. It has 2 tendrils in which to do that, and that can also potentially lead to a bite attack. And then I like that it's a bite and swallow in one. And then we have Death Fog on a short or long rest. It releases a greenish acidic mist in a 30-foot radius sphere centered on the green vice that lasts for a minute. The fog spreads around corners and its area is heavily obscured. A creature that starts its turn within 30 feet of the green vice must succeed on a DC 16 con save. On a fail, it takes 2d6 acid damage, can't use reactions, its speed is halved, and it can't take more than 1 attack on a turn. So it's basically a slow spell. In addition, the creature can use either an action or a bonus action on its turn, but not both. These effects last until the start of the creature's next turn. On a successful save, the target takes half as much damage and suffers no other effects. The green vice is immune to the effects of its Death Fog. Just a badass creature. And lastly, I have an NPC here. We're going to go with the Death Priest because I thought it was cool. She looks badass. So she's a challenge rating 6. She's wearing half plate and she's got a badass scythe. Now her scythe does a d10 plus 3 damage with a 10-foot reach. And she's got some spells. She's a 13th level spellcaster with a DC 14 wisdom save. Guidance, Mending, Resistance, Toll the Dead. Bane, False Life, Inflict Wounds, Ray of Sickness, Blindness, Deafness, Gentle Repose. So it's a cleric, basically. Animate Dead, Bestow Curse, Vampiric Touch, Banishment, Blight, Death Ward, Anti-Life Shell, Cloud Kill, Flame Strike, Circle of Death, and Symbol. And we have the Mortal Strike ability. As a bonus action, when the Death Priest hits a creature with a weapon attack, it can spend a spell slot to deal an extra 1d8 necrotic damage to the target, and the target must succeed on a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw or have its hit points reduced by an amount equal to the damage taken. This reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. If the target dies, if this effect reduces its hit point to the target dies if it reduces its hit points to 0, so no saves, just dead. If the Death Priest expends a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, the extra necrotic damage increases by 1d8 for each level above first. So it kind of also lets you get like a smiting style ability on top of being a cleric. And then we also have here, right here, Monster Manual Expanded 2, coming 4th quarter 2019, which is supplement to the Monster Manual, Volo's Guide to Monsters in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And if you look, Tiamat, Lolth, Demogorgon, Orcus. So I'm wondering if we're going to get some other stats for gods and goddesses, or similar to the deities and demigods. I mean, we have stats for a lot of these monsters already, but I'm wondering if we're going to get some new ones. So anyway, guys, sorry that one ran a little bit long. Kept it probably under a half an hour. But that is my review of Monster Manual Expanded. I think it's one of the best resources. I've used it in my campaigns. It's great to throw things. I threw a Spectre, I think, at one of my players, and a Shadow, like a Greater Spectre and a Greater Shadow that are included in this. And it just severely beefed up the challenge rating. It also threw them for a loop because they're the kind of people who may, not on purpose, but have more or less kind of looked through, and they run a lot of games, so maybe almost memorize the Monster Manual. So it's a way to throw, without having to come up with something from a homebrew source or elsewhere, to take an existing monster they may be familiar with and severely beef it up and make it more interesting and challenging. So I really love this product. If you'd like to pick up a copy of it for yourself, there's a link below for which you can do so. And it's an affiliate link, so if you pick up a copy, a little bit of it comes back to Nerd Immersion in the long run. So it helps me go out and buy more modules on the DM's Guild to review for you guys. And lastly, if you don't know, I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on Twitch, and every other Sunday my friend Celeste runs a game where she runs 3 one-shots, some of which I've reviewed here on the channel as well. So if you haven't taken a chance to go and subscribe to us on Twitch, we would really appreciate it if you did so. We're trying to get to 3,000, where we're going to have Celine run her first streamed game, and really one of her first Dungeon Mastered games ever in the history of her time playing 5th edition. And lastly, again, if you like the video and you like what I'm doing here, I'd love if you threw a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you at the next DM's Guild review.